Lionel Richie, sitting alone in a quiet room, staring straight into the camera. His voice was softer than usual. Slower. Careful. I didn't think it would end like this. That's how he started. For decades, fans knew him as the man behind love songs that never seemed to fade. The voice that filled weddings, late-night drives, and memories people never let go of. A man who always looked calm, always in control. But in this recording, something felt different. There was a pause between his words. Moments where he looked down, like he was choosing carefully what to say next. Or what not to say at all. "I kept this from you. Longer than I should have." That line alone changed everything. Because suddenly, this wasn't just a message. It felt like a confession. Rumors had been floating for years, about his health, about struggles behind the scenes, about things that never made headlines. Most people ignored them. After all, Lionel always came back smiling, always performing, always the same. But now, he wasn't hiding. "I thought I had more time." That was the line that hit hardest. No one expected this. Not now. Not like this. So what happened behind the fame? What was he hiding all these years? And why did he wait until now to finally say goodbye? To understand that moment, you have to go all the way back. Before the awards, before the fame, before the world ever knew his name. Back to a small town where none of this seemed possible. Long before the spotlight found him, Lionel Richie was just a quiet kid growing up in Tuskegee. It wasn't the kind of place people expected stars to come from. Tuskegee was small, close-knit, the kind of town where everyone knew each other, and life moved at a slower pace. But underneath that calm surface, there were limits. Real ones. The kind you don't always see, but you feel every day. He grew up in a time when opportunities weren't handed out equally, where the path ahead wasn't always clear, especially for a young black boy with big dreams but no clear direction yet. His family played a big role in shaping him. They weren't famous. They weren't rich. But they believed in education, structure, and discipline. Music wasn't seen as a career. It was just something people did in church, at gatherings, or in passing moments. Still, music was always there. Not loud. Not demanding attention. But present. He started out shy. The kind of kid who didn't speak much in groups. He watched more than he talked. Listened more than he acted. And for a long time, no one would have guessed he'd one day become one of the most recognizable voices in the world. At Tuskegee Institute, things slowly started to shift. At first, he wasn't even focused on music. Tennis was his thing. He was good enough to earn a scholarship, and for a while that felt like the path. Something stable. Something real. Music was still just on the side. But life has a way of pulling you in directions you didn't plan. He picked up the saxophone. Not because he wanted fame, but because it felt natural. Easy. Like something he didn't have to force. Then came the small performances. Campus events. Local crowds. Nothing big. But something changed the first time he saw people react. Not just hearing the music, but feeling it. That was new. That was powerful. Still, even then, he didn't see himself as a singer. He wasn't chasing the spotlight. If anything, he was comfortable staying in the background, playing his part, not standing out too much. But the truth was, something was building. Slowly. Quietly. And once it started, there was no stopping it. Because soon, he wouldn't just be playing music anymore. He'd be stepping into a world that would change everything. Fame, pressure, expectations, and a life that would come with a cost no one could see yet. It didn't happen overnight. When Lionel Richie first got involved with the Commodores, it wasn't some big, life-changing moment. It was just a group of college guys trying to make music, playing wherever they could. Small gigs, crowds that barely paid attention, long nights with little money. At first, Lionel wasn't even the center of it. He played saxophone, stayed in the background, let others take the spotlight. That's where he felt comfortable. But things weren't easy. There were moments when it felt like nothing was working. Shows that went nowhere. Audiences that didn't care. Times when quitting seemed like the smarter option. They weren't stars. They weren't even close. Then came the opportunity that changed everything. opening for the Jackson 5. It should have been exciting. And it was. But it was also pressure. Because now, they weren't just playing for small crowds anymore. They were stepping onto bigger stages, in front of people who expected something real. Something memorable. And at first, they struggled. They had energy, but they didn't have direction. Their sound wasn't fully clear yet. They were still trying to figure out who they were. That's when Lionel started to shift. Not loudly, not all at once, but gradually, he moved forward, not just as a musician, but as a writer, a storyteller, someone who understood how to connect with people through simple, honest words. Songs like Easy and 3 Times a Lady didn't come from trying to impress people. They came from real emotion. And suddenly, people noticed. The crowd started listening. The songs started sticking. The name the Commodores started meaning something. But success brought something else with it. Expectations. Now Lionel wasn't just part of the group anymore. He was becoming the voice of it. The one people associated with the sound, the feeling, the hits. And that created tension. Because when one person starts to stand out, it changes the balance. Even if no one says it out loud. There were disagreements. Quiet ones. The kind that build over time. Questions about direction, control, and who was really leading the band. Lionel didn't want conflict, but he couldn't ignore what was happening either. Because deep down, something was becoming clear. He wasn't meant to stay in the background anymore. And that realization would lead to a decision that could have ended everything. Or made him bigger than anyone expected. Leaving the Commodores wasn't easy. It wasn't just a career move. It was walking away from something that had defined his life for years. The people, the music, the journey, they were all tied together. And now he was stepping out alone. For Lionel Richie, that meant one thing. No safety net. There were doubts from everywhere. People in the industry questioned if he could survive without the band. Some thought he was making a mistake. Others believed his success was tied to the group, not him. Even fans weren't sure. Because being part of a band is one thing. Carrying everything on your own? That's different. The pressure was immediate. His first solo projects had to work. Not eventually. Not slowly. Right away. And behind the scenes, it wasn't as smooth as it looked. There were long hours in the studio. Constant second-guessing. Moments where nothing sounded right. Where the songs didn't feel strong enough. Where he wondered if everyone else had been right. But then something clicked. It wasn't about trying to prove anything. It was about being honest. Songs like Hello didn't rely on complexity. They were simple, direct, emotional. The kind of song that didn't just play. It stayed with you. And that's what changed everything. The audience connected. Not just in the US, but everywhere. Suddenly, he wasn't just successful. He was everywhere. Radio, TV, concerts, award shows. His voice became part of people's lives in a way few artists ever reach. But success came with a cost. Because the more visible he became, the less private his life was. There were no breaks. No real time to step away. Just constant movement. Constant expectations. Constant pressure to keep delivering. And behind that calm image people saw, he was getting tired. Not physically at first, but mentally, emotionally. Because when everything depends on you, there's no place to hide when things start to crack. From the outside, it looked perfect. Fame, success, money, recognition. But behind all of that, Lionel Richie was dealing with something much harder to manage. His personal life. Relationships started to fall apart. His marriage, once stable, began to break under the pressure of fame, time, and distance. Being constantly on the road didn't just affect his career, it affected everything at home. There were arguments, misunderstandings, silence where there used to be connection. And then came the moment that turned everything public. The scandal. It wasn't something he planned. It wasn't something he wanted exposed. But once it was out, there was no controlling it. Headlines, rumors, stories that spread faster than the truth. People who once admired him now questioned him. And the hardest part? He couldn't respond to all of it. because no matter what he said, it wouldn't change how people saw him. That kind of pressure doesn't just go away. It stays. It builds. Behind closed doors, things were different from the image people saw on stage. The smiles were still there in public. The performances didn't stop. But privately, there were moments of isolation. Moments where the noise of fame faded, and all that was left was the reality of what he was losing. Not just relationships, but a sense of stability, of control, of knowing who he was outside of the spotlight. Because when your life becomes a story everyone talks about, it stops feeling like your own. And for the first time, Lionel wasn't just dealing with pressure from the industry. He was dealing with something deeper, something heavier. And it was starting to take a toll in ways no one could see yet. At first, it didn't seem serious. A little strain in his throat, a rough note during a performance, moments where his voice didn't respond the way it used to. For most people, that wouldn't mean much. But for Lionel Richie, his voice wasn't just part of his life. It was everything. He tried to ignore it, pushed through shows, adjusted his tone, told himself it was just fatigue. Because stopping, that wasn't an option. Not when schedules were packed, tours were planned, and expectations were high. But the problem didn't go away. It got worse. There were nights when hitting certain notes felt almost impossible. Times when he'd walk off stage knowing something wasn't right, but hoping no one noticed. Eventually, he couldn't ignore it anymore. Doctors gave him news he didn't expect. His vocal cords weren't functioning the way they should. There was damage, serious enough to threaten everything he had built. And suddenly, the fear became real. Not fear of losing fame, not fear of losing money, fear of losing his voice. The one thing people connected to, the one thing that made him who he was. He went through procedures, quietly. No announcements, no headlines. Recovery wasn't easy. There were long periods of silence. Times when he couldn't speak properly, let alone sing. Moments filled with doubt, wondering if this was the end of his career. But the outside world didn't see that. They still saw the same Lionel, the same smile, the same confidence. Because he chose not to show the struggle. He came back, slowly. Voice not exactly the same, but strong enough. And for a while, it seemed like he had made it through. But what people didn't know was this. That fear never really left him. It stayed in the background. Quiet. Waiting. Fame looked simple from a distance. Lights. Applause. Success. But for Lionel Richie, there was another side to it. One he never really talked about. The industry wasn't always what it seemed. There were deals that didn't feel right. Conversations that happened behind closed doors. People who smiled in public and acted differently in private. Trust became complicated. Not everyone around him had good intentions. Some saw opportunity instead of loyalty. Some stayed close not because they cared, but because of what they could gain. And it took time to realize that. There were moments when he felt used. Moments when decisions were made without him having full control. Financial choices that didn't turn out the way he expected. Agreements that came with consequences he didn't fully see at the time. But he didn't speak on it. Because speaking out comes with risk. Especially when your entire career depends on the same system. So he stayed quiet. Handled things privately. Moved forward the only way he knew how, by focusing on the music. But the pressure built over time. Not just from the industry, but from expectations. People expected him to always be the same. Always calm. Always perfect. Always delivering. There was no room to break. No space to step back and say, "I'm not okay." And the truth is, there were times he wasn't. Times when the weight of everything, career, reputation, personal life, felt like too much. There were thoughts about walking away. Just stopping. Leaving it all behind. But he didn't. Because walking away isn't easy when your identity is tied to what you do. So instead he kept going. Even when it cost him more than people realized. Years passed. The career continued. The performances continued. The public image stayed the same. But behind all of it, something was shifting. For Lionel Richie, The turning point didn't come suddenly. It came quietly. Another doctor's visit. Another checkup. Another moment where he expected to hear something manageable. But this time, it was different. The room felt heavier. The tone changed. And the words that followed weren't easy to process. It wasn't something minor anymore. It wasn't something he could just push through. The diagnosis forced him to stop and really look at his life. Not as a performer, not as a public figure, but as a person. Time suddenly felt different. More limited. More real. There's a moment that comes with news like that, where everything slows down. Where you start thinking about things you've avoided. Regrets. Missed time. Things you never said. He didn't announce it. Didn't go public. Didn't turn it into headlines. Instead, he kept it close. Only a small circle knew. But internally, everything changed. Priorities shifted. The things that once felt urgent didn't anymore. And the things he had been putting off, they started to matter. That's when the idea of a goodbye started to form. Not out of fear, but out of understanding. Because for the first time, he wasn't thinking about the next tour or the next song. He was thinking about what he would leave behind. And more importantly, what he still needed to say before he couldn't say it anymore. There was no big announcement, no press, no setup, no audience. Just Lionel Richie, a quiet room, and a camera. By the time he decided to record the message, the decision had already been made. Not quickly, not emotionally. It came after days, maybe weeks, of thinking, going back and forth, asking himself what really needed to be said. Because this wasn't just another interview. This was something permanent. He sat down, looked at the camera, and didn't start right away. There were a few seconds of silence. The kind of silence that says more than words. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady, but softer than people were used to hearing. "I've been trying to figure out how to say this." He stopped, looked away for a moment, then came back. "I don't think there's a perfect way." That was the tone of the entire message. Not polished, not rehearsed, just honest. He didn't jump straight into the diagnosis. He talked about time. How fast it moves. How easy it is to believe you have more of it than you actually do. Then he said something that caught people off guard. "I spent a lot of my life making sure you were okay. Through my music." A small pause. "But I didn't always take the same care of myself." It wasn't dramatic. He didn't go into heavy detail. But the meaning was clear. There were choices he regretted. Moments he pushed too far. Times he ignored what his body was trying to tell him. Then, slowly, he addressed what everyone had been wondering. "I've been dealing with something for a while now." No specific name. No medical terms. Just enough to make it real. "I thought I could outrun it." Another pause. "I can't." That line stayed with people. Because it didn't sound like defeat. It sounded like acceptance. As the message went on, he became more open. He talked about the fear, not of dying, but of leaving things unfinished. Of not saying what needed to be said. Of not being fully honest with the people who supported him for decades. "I didn't want you to see me like this." That was one of the most personal lines in the entire recording. Because for so long his image had been controlled. Careful. Strong. Now he was letting that go. "I wanted you to remember the songs. The good moments. A deep breath. But you deserve the truth too." By the time the message reached its final moments, everything had changed. This wasn't just an update anymore. It was a goodbye. Lionel Richie leaned slightly closer to the camera. Not dramatically. Just enough to feel more direct. More personal. "I don't know how much time I have left to do this. Like I used to." That line hit hard. Because for the first time, he wasn't speaking as a performer. He was speaking as someone who knew things were coming to an end. "I'm not disappearing tomorrow," he added quickly, almost like he didn't want to scare people. "But I am slowing down." And then came the part no one expected. "I'm saying goodbye. The only way I know how. Not to life, but to the version of himself the world had known for decades. The touring, the constant performing, The never-ending schedule. It was over. He talked about gratitude, about the fans who stayed from the beginning, the ones who grew up with his music, the ones who played his songs during the most important moments of their lives. I've been a part of your memories, and you've been my whole life. There was a visible pause here, longer than before. His eyes didn't leave the camera, but something shifted, like he was holding something back, or trying not to. Then came the line that stunned everyone. I wish I had been more honest sooner. That was it. No explanation. No details. Just a sentence that opened more questions than it answered. Honest about what? His health? His struggles? His life behind the scenes? He didn't clarify. And maybe that was the point. Because sometimes, what isn't said, says more. As the message came to an end, his tone softened even more. No dramatic music. No big closing line. Just something simple. Take care of yourselves. Better than I did. A small, quiet smile followed. The same smile people had seen for years. But this time it felt different. Real. Unfiltered. And thank you for listening to me all these years. He didn't say goodbye again. He didn't need to. The video ended a few seconds later. No fade. No credits. Just silence. And within hours, the reaction was everywhere. Fans didn't know how to process it. Some focused on the diagnosis, trying to figure out what he meant. Others focused on the emotional weight of the message itself. Clips spread fast. Comments poured in. People sharing memories, stories, moments tied to his music. But more than anything, there was one common feeling. Shock. Not because he was stepping away, but because of how he said it. Quiet, honest, unprotected. And for the first time, it felt like the world wasn't listening to a legend. They were listening to a man, telling the truth before it was too late. So, what do you think about Lionel Richie's final message? Did anything he said surprise you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're really curious to hear how you felt watching this. If this story stayed with you, hit the like button and subscribe. We bring you the real stories behind the biggest names, the parts people don't usually talk about. And we'll see you in the next one.